Good evening, and welcome to Tales from the KRIMKEEPER. Me, your host, the KRIMKEEPER. Tonight, me present good old-fashioned story Tyrannosaurus Sext. It's all about T-Rex and sexting. So now presenting Tyrannosaurus Sext. Tyrannosaurus Sext by Lola Faust. This is ridiculous, and Alice knows it. There's no good reason for her to be here right now at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, standing outside the high cement fence that surrounds the headquarters of High Tech Inc. There is, however, a bad reason, or at least a potentially ill-advised one. His name is Rex. She's here because for the last 3 weeks she's been talking to Rex online, and this is where they're supposed to meet. She'd always promised herself she'd never use dating apps, but she'd broken up with her ex months ago after 5 years together, and as she became increasingly frustrated, she figured it couldn't hurt to try, right? And Rex seemed nice. He said the right things, he seemed to have similar preferences. The sexing was fun. How bad could he be? But Alice is starting to have suspicions. He's 20 minutes late. At this point, he's got to have security cams in case something happens, she thinks. They sell them. She hugs her arms around her chest, burrowing into her heavy jacket. It's late autumn, and she can see her breath in the glow of the floodlight. She wishes she had someone to keep her warm. Suddenly there's a thump. It's a heavy sound, like something being dropped. Alice startles, and then there's another thump, thump, thump. It's a rhythm, she realizes. It's footsteps. The footsteps of something absolutely massive. She holds her breath. It's not terribly uncommon for corporations like this to employ dinosaurs as their security guards. They aren't usually suitable for more intellectual pursuits, and they're excellent thief deterrents. The revival happened when Alice was small, and she's no stranger to the sight of a dino, but it's been rare for her to see one up close. Even if she's being stood up, it'd be nice to gawk at a beast. Alice is a little worried that she'll get in trouble for loitering, but she stands her ground. She wants to stay in range of the security cams, and she's not doing anything so terrible, right? Just a girl standing by a wall, being stood up by a date. Happens thousands of times a day. And the dinosaur peeks over the top of the cement wall. It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex wearing a security guard uniform. Alice? The voice is a deep grumbling, almost a purr. It's smooth and rough all at once. Alice stares with wide eyes. How did you know my name? Alice, as in Alice Palace 95, the Tyrannosaurus Rex adds. Oh my god, says Alice. Are you king of the city? That's Rex's screen name. Their conversation started out as something else. Something more gentle. They had just been talking about everyday things at first, the basic getting to know you chatter that confirms that this is a person worth talking to. They had hit it off so well that things had gone further than she expected them to, and it had been fun. King of the City had been great at it. He had told her things that had brought Alice straight to the edge, her fingers working over her pussy as she read about all the things that he would do to her, if only he could. So they had decided to meet up here so that he could. Alice had assumed that King of the City, whomever he was, worked here. Maybe he'd been nervous, like her, and had wanted to be in full view of the security cameras, but it never once occurred to her that the man would be a dinosaur. What a story. She hadn't known they were capable of such intellectual banter, or such thrilling wordplay. This sounds very racist. She certainly hadn't known that they were interested in sex with humans, but here she is, and here he is. And an unexpected thrill rises in her. Rex tilts his head to the side so he can get a better look at her. You're even prettier in person. I didn't think it would be like this. You're a dinosaur, says Alice. Dinosaur tilts his head to the side, looking almost ashamed. I should have said something before you came out here. I mean, I understand if you want to leave now. Alice thinks back to the last message she had gotten from him. King of the City had told Alice he would make her feel like the ultimate queen. He had gone into great detail about how good he was with his tongue. As he speaks with that rumbly voice of his, she can see flashes of it between his sharp teeth. It's long. It must be dexterous. Prehensile. To check the dinosaur facts later about that one. She knows that it is something special, that everything Rex had told her is true. She knows he's a rare dinosaur. She knows he wants her. Those teeth flash in the floodlight, adding an almost dangerous edge to the fantasy. Alice has never been one for danger, but she can feel her taste shifting and expanding as she takes in the sight of Rex's body. His powerful jaws, keen and flashing eyes. His mouth. Right now, all she wants is for that massive dinosaur head to be buried between her legs and her thighs, to be pressed against either side of his massive, scaly muzzle. How big are these T-Rexes? Her cheeks, already ruddy from the cold, go even pinker. She surprised herself. I understand that you want to leave. I do. Not a lot of people would be alright with this. And I know that... Oh my god. Rex says, I understand that you want to leave. I do. Not a lot of people would be alright with this, and I know that. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. It's okay, Alice says. I'm not leaving. Rex tilts his head again, clearly surprised. Are you sure? I don't want to do anything that would make you uncomfortable. I want to do the things we talked about all week, says Alice. I've never been with a dinosaur, but I want to try. Whew. Okay, well, that's pretty interesting, I guess. No idea how graphic this gets. As she speaks, she realizes it's true. She wants to try new things. Her last relationship had been stifling. Her ex had very simple tastes and was never interested in spicing things up. At the time, she thought it was just how things were. But now there's a dinosaur, a whole dinosaur, standing in front of her, beckoning her in. He's enormous and powerful and intelligent. This is exactly what she needs. Follow me, says Rex. He walks along the wall, tall enough that it's easy for her to follow along, and leads Alice to a metal gate at the far side of the building. He opens it for her, and it rises with a whir. She steps inside. Rex is even bigger once in full view, and though Alice knows it's a strange thing to think, she also can't deny the fact that he's terribly handsome. There's a sheen to his skin, a green and mottled shading that draws the eye. His golden eyes are huge and vaguely cat-like, and his mouth is filled with rows of massive, sharp teeth. He hunkers down, using his fingers to tap at the keypad. The gate closes behind them. Rex says, it took me a long time to figure out how to do this, but I've gotten pretty good. I'd say you're pretty good, says Alice. You're very good. I look forward to seeing just how good you are. She can't quite believe she's being so forward. Rex towers over her. Slowly, Alice reaches out and puts a hand on the curve of his belly. His skin is smooth and rigid beneath her palm. She's surprised somehow. She thought it would be clammy and cold, but he's warm, and his skin is yielding. She rubs at him for a moment, and then tilts her head back and smiles. She asks him, Do you work here? I live here, he says, leading the way into the facility grounds. His tail doesn't drag against the ground, but rather sways as a counterbalance to his bulk. And it's so easy to follow along. His steps are large, but slow. Are you sure you're okay with this? I came out here because I liked you. I liked talking to you, says Alice, honestly. Rex leads her to a section of the grounds that has clearly been converted for dinosaur living. Rather than stairs leading up into the apartments, there are stairs that lead down into an underground complex with high ceilings, hewn into clay. There it is. It's surprisingly homey, lit with fairy lights strung up across the walls. There are a few of us who live here, Rex says, but the others are elsewhere. It's just us right now. We'll have privacy. He leads Allison into an apartment just off the main communal space. It's decorated modestly but tastefully, mostly with low-light plants. A little water fountain in the corner gurgles serenely. Oh my god, reading's hard. There's a large circular couch-like structure with a dip in the back for Rex's tail to hang over the side of it. Alice looks around. I like it. You like it? I do, says Alice. and she unzips the front of her jacket and throws it over the back of the couch. She's wearing a pair of tight jeans and a low-cut blouse. Rex openly stares at her cleavage. His cock is already starting to protrude from his vent. Okay. Um, I don't know what a vent is. I assume it's cloaca-y, but with a penis. It's thick. Even barely visible, she can tell that. The head of the cock is tapered, and it's a brilliant sort of flushed red, thick as 4 fingers right at the top, and then thicker still as it slides down. 5 fingers? How much thicker? Alice always knew she would be getting a little bit tonight, and it just turned out that she's going to be getting a lot instead. A lot. That is top quality writing there. They italicized lot. I don't know if that matters to anybody. She thinks about how Rex had texted her about wanting to undress her slowly, how his messages has taken great care to explain that, so she gives him what he wanted. She slowly pulls off her blouse and tosses it to the floor, and then reaches down to unhook the front of her jeans. She slides those down as well, revealing the fact that she isn't wearing any panties beneath. Rex reaches his huge head down to help, looking at it, hooking a tooth into one of the belt loops and pulling them off of her. Okay. Sure. Okay, T-Rex. Once her clothes are on the floor, she steps forward and she takes hold of the dinosaur's cock. It takes both hands to wrap around fully. Rubbing over the length as she touches Rex, his cock continues to grow in size. Good for him. Both hands. I don't know. Is this 4 fingers? This is kind of 4 fingers. His cock continues to grow in size. It's absolutely massive. Thick around as a soda can. And just as long as her forearm, with a ribbed texture to it that makes her mouth start to water. She'd never imagined that she would be attracted to a dinosaur. But in this moment, she can't imagine how she'd ever lived without this. What a very silly book. Rex makes a crooning sound in the back of his throat, sitting down a little bit so it's easier for Alice to reach. She works over the length of his cock with both hands, gathering up the copious amounts of pre-cum that he's spilling and using it to help slick the way. Easy, she croons back at him. Rex's breath catches, and then with a rumble he says, "We don't have to... If this is too off-putting for you." Alice says, "Do I look like I'm unhappy?" She smiles up at him. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to be you. Wait, if I didn't want to be. I want this. I want you." With that settled, she turns back to focusing fully on Rex, on turning to him to make him as comfortable as he can. And if being honest, it's pretty hot, getting to jack off someone that's so much larger than she is. The thought of actually being fucked with that thing, oh, that gets Alice really hot and bothered and very wet between the legs. She wipes her thumbs against the underside of the dinosaur's flared cock head and then drags them down over a thick vein in the side. Rex is leaking more now, his cock pulsing between her hands. She can tell that he's close. The dinosaur is breathing hard, huffing through his flaring nostrils, growing with pleasure as he rolls his hips, juddering them against her hands. This isn't very evocative. And then he's coming, thick ropes of it spilling all over Alice's hands. It's hot and thicker than a man's cum, and there's so much of it that it seems to be everywhere at once. Too much to hold. If he had come inside her, it would surely be... Wait. If he had come inside of her, it would surely make her belly bloat up with the force of it. Her eyes flutter, just thinking about this massive cock being inside of her enough to get her practically dripping in her panties. That she's not wearing. This is top quality writing. She pulls back, looking at him from underneath her eyelashes. "Wow, you're even better than the messages made you seem, but..." She takes a step backwards, moving to sit on the edge of the circular couch and spreading her legs, letting one hand settle between them. I think it's my turn now, don't you? Yeah, says Rex. I really, really do. And that is the end of Tyrannosaurus Sext. That was weird. It didn't really have an ending. They just sort of meet up and hook up, I guess, in his weird special dinosaur cave made for dinosaurs. The porn was kind of really bad and non-evocative. Let's see, that only took 15 minutes. Well, let's go for the next story in this book. 9.5 Velociraptors. Let's see. Now presenting Chapter 2. I don't even think this is related. 9.5 Velociraptors. I think it's an anthology series. Didn't really get that when I opened the book. Didn't really check. Elizabeth looked into the tunnel and flexed her glasses that went far too low on the bridge of her nose. Oh, I actually can't read if I do that. Okay, well, there you go. When she'd only started to work in the lab, she couldn't have imagined that she'd be seeing things like this, that she'd bear witness to dinosaurs in the wild and observe their life. At the start of this research program, quantum tunneling technology was used to observe evolutionary processes happening so they could make notes on what really pushed the changes. Once that goal was reached, it was time to look into each historical moment deeper. Elizabeth was busy with documenting and observing prehistoric times for a while now, and her fascination with the long-gone population of dinosaurs only grew stronger. Not so long ago, a pack of velociraptors caught her eye. Before starting her work, Elizabeth thought that dinosaurs were vicious, only following their instincts and nothing else. After a month of observing, however, she started to change her mind. It was obvious to her now that each of the creatures she was looking at using this amazing technology had its own personality and its own struggles, but in the end, they were all working together to survive. She seemed to be the youngest. Blue seemed to be the youngest of the pack. Elizabeth was giving them names based on their looks and personality, and Blue just had the lightest tint of that color running along his back. He was all around the place, helping others and teaching the small raptors how to behave. Mary was always guarding a clutch of eggs, being one of the most fertile in the group. Others treated her well, always bringing her the best pieces of meat. That's how Elizabeth knew they valued each other and their pack. Hunter was the one bringing in the most of the food. While raptors mostly only hunt in packs, he could successfully bring in small animals even on his own. One day, Elizabeth witnessed him mating with Mary, and it was a picture both disturbing and mesmerizing. It looked like a fight at first, but Elizabeth noticed that there were no wounds, no blood. Their noses bumped into each other as if they were kissing. Then Mary turned pressed against the tree, while Hunter took her from behind, their screams loud. Elizabeth couldn't take her eyes away. It was clear that both raptors enjoyed it, and this passionate mating was something they had both wanted. And for a split second, Elizabeth wanted to feel it too, but she quickly got that thought out of her head. The most vicious and unpredicted one in the pack was Scratch, but even being impulsive, loud, and sometimes aggressive, he served his purpose. With raptors being small and sometimes helpless in the face of larger predators, Scratch was one of the first to come forward and scare them away with his aggressive and irrational behavior. It seemed like he wasn't afraid of anything, which made the rest of the pack both fearful and respectful of him. I really don't get the anatomy this woman is picturing with these dinosaurs, but whatever. Too bad we can't bring one of them here to get a closer look, Elizabeth almost jumped, hearing a voice next to her. Looking into the tunnel, she almost forgot she wasn't the only one in the lab. Eric was looking at her with a smile, waiting for a response. Well, technically we can do that, she said, feeling awkward while he looked at her like this, giving Elizabeth all of the attention. But we're not allowed, which is a real shame. You're right, Eric said, standing even closer to her. Elizabeth wondered if he intended to almost be pressed to her side, or if it was just an awkward move he made. It is a shame. We could have learned a lot more about them if only they were here in the lab. Elizabeth smiled shyly, looking at Eric while he was focused on the raptors. She always thought that he was attractive. Maybe a little too much for a man in the science field. Ever since Eric and she started working on the same project, Elizabeth felt more awkward in his presence. If she was completely honest with herself, she would have realized how big of a crush she had on him. But for now, Elizabeth still wished she could control how much she blushed next to him. As much as that other lady did next to the soda can T-Rex. Probably. Do we have any plans for the evening? Folks from Evolution Research want to go out tonight, and they offered us to join. Offered us to join. What do you think? Eric looked at her with a wide smile, as if he really wanted Elizabeth to go with him, but she didn't know what to say or do. She was shy and never got along well with people she didn't know. It was best to keep it safe so others wouldn't make fun of her. I can't, she said. Seeing the disappointment on Eric's face, she didn't like to see him like this, but it was late to change her mind. I wanted to finish some work, so I'll probably be staying late. Eric moved away, his shoulders sagging. It's a shame, he said. Whew, starting to pack his things, Elizabeth realized that the workday was coming to an end, and she barely noticed it. Just don't stay out too late, okay? I don't need my partner to be tired during work hours. I won't. I promise, Elizabeth said, feeling sad watching him leave. Hope you'll have fun. Well, let's see. So she's gonna stay and look at velociraptors on the quantum internet, I guess. Eric waved at her before leaving the lab, the door behind him closing. Elizabeth was alone again, the emptiness that this brought her just settling in. She was behind the desk, looking back into the center of a tunnel. The Raptors were still busy with their lives, doing their best to be a valuable part of the community. Despite herself, Elizabeth felt tears burning in her eyes. She could only wish to have that. Whenever she tried to connect with someone, her shyness was always getting in her way, and she couldn't see that changing. And she couldn't see that changing anytime soon. If only she could be part of something bigger, like the Raptors were. Since she had told Eric she was staying late, she might as well do it, but not without having a little bit of fun on her own. If one of the drawers of her desk, Elizabeth had a bottle of wine that was gifted to her last Christmas. She wasn't much of a drinker, so it stayed there, waiting for its moment. It looked like this was the right one. She pulls out the bottle and opened it. Feeling the pleasant, sweet smell. There were no proper glasses in the lab. She had to pour some into her coffee mug. The wine made her feel warm, but the sadness didn't go away. It was just muted. Elizabeth could still feel it inside her, eating her out, and it led to her pouring another glass, and then another. She didn't feel how drunk she was until it was too late. The wine was sweet, hiding the real amount of alcohol that was in it. Is that how wine works? I guess. Elizabeth felt warm, her skin getting tight, and her heart beating fast. It felt the same way when she was turned on, but she didn't want sex. Not right now. She wanted a connection. She wanted to be close to someone. She wanted to be touched, caressed, and kissed, but there was no one there for her. And the closest she got to an affectionate partner right now were the Raptors at the end of the still open tunnel. She had an idea. It was insane, though, for Elizabeth to quickly disregard it. It was insane enough for Elizabeth to quickly disregard it, but it kept coming back, with no human wanting her. Could she get the care and affection she needed from the Raptors? I hope not. Observing them for so long, she did not doubt that they all had the qualities needed to make a good partner. But will she dare to break the rules? This feels like the back cover blurb. Why is this in the fucking book? Still hesitant, Elizabeth walked close to the tunnel. She remembered the instructions she received at the start of her research. A tunnel could bring someone from their time into the lab, but it wasn't allowed since no one could predict the outcome of such an action. Well, with the amount of wine she had today, Elizabeth started to feel risky. She leaned down to the electrical box at the side of the tunnel, finding the safety circuit. Carefully, she removed the wire, seeing one of the sensors turning red. At least there wasn't an alarm that went off. That would have stopped all the Raptors coming back. Still not understanding what her actions would result in, Elizabeth went to her computer to change the settings. She needed to focus on one of the Raptors, so she'll only bring in one of them. Looking around, she had her doubts about which one will be best suited. Well, that's because she's trying to do something silly for this role. Still Blue seemed to be the one who she could deal with, but it wasn't too strong or aggressive with strangers, and there were only him in the tunnel, and Elizabeth's finger hovered over the button. Was she really doing it? Was she really this lonely? And the answer was yes. Elizabeth didn't know what to expect, but the way Blue transported into the lab wasn't going the way she expected. Here he was, standing on the grass, with his pack nearby him. Suddenly, a tunnel seemed to suck him in and spit him out on the floor in front of Elizabeth. When he looked up at her, she could see the shock. It was to be expected of a creature that just went through time and space. And then Blue started panicking. He got up first, screeching noises coming out of his mouth, and as he ran around the lab looking for a way out, dropping things from the tables, Elizabeth moved away, trying to be as far as possible from his teeth and long, sharp claws. "Calm down, please," she said. That's the tone of her voice will stop the raptor. Wait, she said, hoping... "Calm down, please," she said, hoping the tone of her voice will stop the raptor, but Blue wasn't listening to her. He was panicking even more now, scared and confused about what just happened. Elizabeth had to calm him down if she didn't want him to ruin her equipment. Still scared of what might happen, she walked closer to him, extending her arm to him. Toward him. Extending her arm toward him. "Please, I don't want to hurt you." Blue stopped in place, looking at her, his arms still up. He could hurt her with his claws, but Elizabeth was sure this won't happen. She could see him better now, his green skin, his flaring nostrils, his yellow eyes. She was dangerously close now, but there was no coming back. She needed to calm him down, and there was no other way to do so. "Here," she said, putting a hand on top of his nose, caressing it lightly. Blue wasn't reacting yet, just looking at her. "I'm not bad, I promise." Okay. He was the same height as her, and Elizabeth could look him right in the eye. Okay. Taking a deep breath, she put both of her hands to his face, letting Blue feel or smell. It looked like he was calming her down, his breathing becoming slower, and Elizabeth was happy to see it. He rubbed her face over her palms, inhaling her again and again. When Blue moved forward, Elizabeth got scared. What if he was still scared and wanted to hurt her after all? She was too afraid that he'll go into a panic again, so she stayed put, waiting for what was about to happen. His short arms went around her. Elizabeth felt the hint of a claws on her back, and then Blue pulled her closer. His nose pressed against her neck. Her heart started to beat faster, fear making her freeze in place. Did he want to eat her? They preyed on mammals, after all. A moment had passed. Another one. And Blue was huffing and smelling her, when Elizabeth was absolutely overwhelmed. With fear, she felt something wet moving over her neck. It was Blue's tongue. He accepted her. "Good," she said, her voice hoarse. She put her hands on his arms, caressing them lightly. "Good boy." Blue let out a weak clicking sound, letting her go. Elizabeth made a step back, smiling. All these emotions had helped her to get sober, and now she was a little lost at what to do next. Right now, she needed a companion, someone to make her feel like she belonged, and that was exactly what Elizabeth planned to get now. She leaned to Blue again, pressing her much smaller human nose to his, rubbing against it like she saw raptors doing in the wild. Blue let out a rubbing sound, moving against her too. She laughed, seeing that they made some progress. Elizabeth could already tell this was going to be a good evening for her. She spent the rest of the night exploring what being next to a raptor actually meant. She thought she knew the way they acted pretty good, but their reactions... Fucking hell. She thought she knew the way they acted pretty good and knew their reactions, but right now Elizabeth wasn't so sure. Seeing Blue so close and away from his pack made her question things, but not all of it was scientific. She'd only seen Blue's genuine reaction to the way she moved or talked. Her laugh was making him irritated, so Elizabeth tried to talk to him in a calm voice. Calm voice. He didn't like it when she was moving her arms too much. What he liked, however, was when Elizabeth was turning so he could see her back. She was afraid to do it at first, in case he'll attack, but once she allowed it to happen, she very much enjoyed it. Blue would put his arms around her again as if hugging her tight, his head resting on her shoulder, the side of his face pressed to her cheek. It felt comforting. It felt warm. Elizabeth really felt like she was cared for. She could feel Blue's breath moving his chest against her back. Then he started licking her neck again, screeching noises becoming louder, and then she felt it. Something hard moving against her ass. Fast and rough. She moved away instantly, and Blue allowed it. When Elizabeth turned around, she saw it just for a moment. It was his cock, sticking out between his legs. Her mouth went open. Did she think she was one of them? That she was ready to mate with him? Maybe it wasn't the best idea to repeat the things raptors were doing with one another after all. Wonder if she'll stick to that at all. I really doubt it. No, she shook her head in disbelief. No, this is not happening. Still in shock, Elizabeth went to her computer, changing the settings of the tunnel once again. In a moment, Blue was gone. Taken back to his time, she could see him standing there confused until the rest of his pack surrounded him, stiffing and making sounds. They knew her smell now. When Elizabeth lifted her hand to her cheek, she could feel how hot her skin was. If she closed her eyes, she could still feel Blue moving against her in a crazy desire to take her. Maybe she should have allowed that. Elizabeth shook her head. No, this was a terrible thought. One that could get her in trouble. But still, even after leaving the lab to get a few hours of sleep, she was thinking about it again and again, and it wouldn't leave her head. Once back in the lab, Elizabeth couldn't stop thinking about what happened. She was doing everything on autopilot, almost not paying attention to what Eric was doing. How did it get there? He asked, picking up a piece of equipment off the floor. Did you drop it, Liz? What? She said, looking at him. What? She said, looking at him as if she just got there from another planet. She cleaned everything once. Once Blue was back to his pack, but it seemed like she missed a thing. Oh, yes, it was probably me, sorry. Eric looked at her strangely, but got back to his work. Today she didn't want to talk to him. To say anything, really. She wanted to be left alone with her thoughts. Elizabeth hated to admit it, but in her life she had never had a connection like the one she felt with Blue yesterday. No words or awkwardness was needed. It was just all based on body language. With people, it was so complicated and often not worth the effort. But with raptors, Elizabeth knew that she made a decision before actually revealing it. Now she needed to go home and wait until Eric... Now she just needed to wait until Eric will go home. I swear to God, this is this is awful. It's terribly... The structure, it's really hard to read. When he started to get ready to go, he looked at Elizabeth as if he was surprised. You're staying late again? There was confusion in his voice. Didn't you do that yesterday already? Yes, I think I'm getting too slow, Elizabeth sighed, trying to make sure Eric bought her an excuse. This is a little work I need to get finished before I'm free. Don't worry, I'll be going home soon too. Don't stay too late, she smiled, and don't drop the equipment again. They said their goodbyes, and Elizabeth stayed behind, waiting until she was sure that Eric was gone to bring in the raptor. She looked at all of them again, still unsure if that was a good idea. Did she really want this deep? Was she really this desperate? Did she really was this desperate? Okay. That's what it says. Elizabeth already knew the answer. She was only able to wait for half an hour before getting too impatient. Looking at the pack, she noticed Hunter standing far from the others. He was slightly bigger than Blue, and for a moment Elizabeth wondered if she'd be able to handle him. She had an experience now, so it was supposed to be okay. She repeated the same procedure again, bringing the raptor to the lab through the tunnel. Hunter looked as confused and scared as Blue was, but Elizabeth already knew what to do. It's okay, she said, getting closer and letting him smell her while staying away from, assuming his teeth and claws. His claws. Hunter still moved his head from side to side until he took in the air, sniffing her. He got calmer, standing still while taking in more air. He knew her. Hunter smelled her on Blue, and now he knew her. That was good, really. Really good. Elizabeth would need less time to make her get used to her. So it would all be moving faster. Yes, just like that. Come here. Elizabeth let Hunter get closer. As he smelled her neck, his nose pushing into her hair, she laughed lightly but quickly stopped, knowing that they didn't like this sound. Hunter was huffing and screeching while touching her. Elizabeth put her hands on his arms, caressing them while still trying to stay away from the claws. It seemed like he liked her now, and she could attempt to do the things she actually brought him in for. Can't be anything good she brought him in for, though, can it? Elizabeth moved away, walking to her desk while Hunter was following her with his eyes. She could feel her body getting tense, fear mixed with desire, just making her even more turned on. Will this happen? Was she really about to allow a prehistoric dinosaur to fuck her? Well, he couldn't be worse than the boyfriend she had before. The boyfriends she had before. She cleared the space on the desk. Looking at Hunter, she pulled her skirt up, bunching it around her hips. Her panties were soaking wet at the front, so Elizabeth almost felt relief when she took them off. Hunter looked interested. He smelled the air, his nostrils flaring, and Elizabeth knew he could feel her arousal. Come here, she said. She turned her back to Hunter. putting one knee on the table and opening her legs wide. Now it'd be easy for him to access her pussy. Nothing standing in the way. Elizabeth just hoped that she was wet enough for him to get inside. Come here, Hunter. I'm giving it to you. And I think I'm going to stop there. That has been your Tales from the KRIMKEEPER for the day. Well, I'll see if I ever read more of this story. It's really bad. This has been Tyrannosaurus Text from Tales from the KRIMKEEPER. And that is me reading that story. So I guess I'll play it out and then figure out if anyone's ever going to call. Might be a new stream, who knows? Call in Friday with your problems at call.crimsel.com. The link will be updated by 5 p.m. PST or whatever other times are on the screen. Bullshit Mountain Time. Even more bullshit Australian time. But the only time that matters is the 8:30 p.m. West Coast time on Friday. Totally unrelated, not an after show, completely independent. Maybe only 50% non-affiliated, who knows? We'll see.